Welcome in to Season 2, Episode 3 of the Nerds Ruin Sports. We took a break last week because, to be honest, we were all traveling and it just did not work out last week. So we are doing it again this week, and we are covering just this week of football. We're not going to go back and cover last week. We're going to cover this week of football. Very simply, I want to introduce my incredible and fabulous co-host, Anders Pryor. Anders, how are you doing today?
I'm good. No, yeah, we're back off the road. Everything's all succinct now. Gonna stay in the present. Good weekend of fantasy. Kind of middle
Speak
of
for yourself.
Yeah, I was gonna say good week of fantasy, middle of the road week in terms of predictions and the books. So
Yeah.
all kind, but the Jets won, which we did not. Obviously, that is included, but we're not going to talk about that explicitly today. But that set a pretty high floor.
I would have picked the Jets, though, Anders. If I did make the predictions this week, I would have picked the Jets. So
yeah.
However, I do have my picks for this week that I made before the games, so
Yep.
I will send them to you so you can have them.
Yep.
And I will say I am very proud of my picks this week, Anders. I picked some pretty nice. Is it this one? One second, yeah. Let's see. These are my picks for the week, Anders. I went with the Jets, the Browns, disappointing. I picked the Colts over the Bears. I picked the Vikings over the Texans. I picked the Saints, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Then I picked Pittsburgh. And then I just went on a whole losing streak here with Bucks, Titans, Raiders, Cardinals. And then I did pick the Seahawks, Ravens, Chiefs. And then I did not pick the Rams. So that's unfortunate. But
yeah, that's I don't have mine in front of me. I think we got a lot of the same stuff right. I picked the Falcons for Sunday Night Football. That did not go my way.
I was considering it. I was so close, Anders, to choosing the Falcons there.
I did pick the Texans. That was the incorrect choice that I'm the most happy about. Yeah, I was with you on the Steelers. Did you say you picked the Colts?
I picked the Colts over the Bears.
I picked the Colts as well. I don't have my lists in front of me, but
that is fine. Now we'll get through that. We'll get you guys our standings up next time. But for now, I just want to do that. But today will be an all NFL day, as we do not believe that much has happened in the last 2 weeks of college football that is really worth talking about, besides the fact that Ashton Gianti just continues to completely impress. I think he had 11 carries for 127 yards this past week.
I'll take an L. I mean, I love Gianti. Obviously, before the season started, I would, even after Gianti had that insane first week, I forget who they were playing, but that insane first week where he had it was 200 something, whatever, and 6 touchdowns. I still held pat down that Ollie Gordon is the best running back in college football. That take, even though he's been better since that Arkansas game, that take is not aged gracefully. He hasn't been disastrously bad. It's just Gianti. I think I underestimated how repeatable some of his kind of things were. So
yeah,
although
I will say, shout out to Keaton Johnson out of Iowa. Mm-hmm. He's been having a fantastic year as well this year, and he is quickly rising up the ranks of the RB room as well. But shout out to him as well. And then, of course, I love Marion Hampton out of North Carolina.
Shout out two other quick running back notes. Shout out Devin Neal from Kansas has been. I think we all knew he was going to be good, but he is slowly ascending. I think he entered the year, and a lot of people will mind about in that kind of RB 8 to 10 sort of range. Now he's creeping in closer to that 5-6 range. But Donovan Edwards has kind of been falling bit by bit. I don't think he's had forgetting the USC game. I'm not sure if he's had one particularly like Ollie Gordon was really good week 1. G&T obviously was amazing week 1. Yeah, he has 82 games against Arkansas State is the most yards that he's had. So that's been a biggest disappointment in terms of the running back room. Definitely.
And we'll continue to break that down as it goes. As of right now on the wide receiver side, I'd say Luther Burden has kind of secured the number 1 wide receiver spot, even early on. Ted Arroyo made a case with week 1, but he's kind of fallen back a little bit recently. I would say, in my opinion, Luther Burden's the clear-cut number 1 wide receiver in this class. Anders, would you agree?
Who you're talking about Burden?
Burden's the clear-cut wide receiver 1.
I would still take McMillan over him just because I think I like his physical traits more. I think the height, right? Tedar McMillan, 6'5", Burden's 5'11", and I also just think McMillan is just kind of more sort of built. But I think those two have kind of separated himself. I think that's sort of next.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a weak wide receiver class outside of McMillan.
I agree 100.
Outside of McMillan and outside of Luther Burden, maybe you could keep Emeka Egbuka there as well. But besides like those 3 guys, this isn't a great wide receiver class.
I think, and it's funny because like Burden and McMillan are both going to be top 10 picks. So but then outside of that, you have a bunch of like last few picks or like fringe first rounders. Like you mentioned Egbuka, Evan Stewart is in that territory. Isaiah Bond out of Texas is in that territory. There's some depth down the line if you look at like who's going to be going in that 2nd and 3rd round territory. I think Nick Anderson is becoming one of the more kind of under appreciated receivers in football. I think in terms of, obviously despite the loss, I think on the whole he's looked really good. I think that out of Ole Miss, I think both Trey Anderson and Antoine Juice Wells are both really cool and interesting prospects. So there's some guys there, but in terms of that, usually like in the past couple of years, we've had a really kind of tight core of like 5 or 6 guys. We don't really appear to have that. It's kind of just like what you said. It's Burden and McMillan, and then a bunch of kind of enigmatic, cross your fingers. You're not really sure. It would have to be a very specific team in a certain spot. But so I agree with you. On the whole, it is a weaker class.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a little college football talk there. We did get a little bit of that in, so you can be happy for us that we got it in. Unfortunately, Nebraska lost this past week, which ruined my entire weekend. But it was still fun. It was a good game, and I thought Raiola played well, minus the one missed throw that he made at the end of the game there that would have probably given him the winning touchdown. And then just that overtime disaster, wherever that was. I thought Raiola played pretty well in general.
Yeah, that opening sack on the first overtime drive was that wasn't great.
No, it was not. But moving on to NFL, as you have heard on this podcast and know on this podcast, me and Anders are in a ton of fantasy football leagues. I know for a fact I'm in 7. Anders, how many are you in?
I'm in 3.
3. Oh, I thought you'd be more. So we're in a combined 10 leagues. Some of those are like not as much care as others.
Yeah.
For me. There are a few that we care a lot though. And Anders, we're going to do a quick fantasy football check-in after week 3 because we are officially 3 weeks into the season. It's our first real test of our teams to see how we're looking. Yep. And I can confirm that my team in our Game Watch Colt League,
our league of record, our kind of tight-knit everyone takes it seriously league that Zach and I are mutually involved in.
Reason I am 0-2. I'm 0-2, about to be 0-3, and Anders, you are about to be 3-0.
Mm-hmm.
So I say we take a look at that league.
Yep.
And Anders, talk to me about. Actually, Anders, I'm going to do something a little special here. I'm going to go to. I am able to log in my ESPN here, and I will share our ESPN teams here.
Oh, wonderful.
So we can check it out. 1 second.
Yeah, we can be highlighting, kind of points of success, who has, who we've succeeded because of and who we've succeeded despite. I definitely have some names in mind that I want to talk about for sure.
Yes, give me 1 second here. Or is this going to work, or is this going to be a freaking jerk? No, it's not. Oh, my God. Just can we go to freaking this, please? 1 second. Fantasy games. Here we go. Come on. Okay. Why is it not working? Am I not signed in right? Is that I need to sign in? 1 second. No, I should be in this. Welcome. Oh, I'm not logged in. That's why. Give me a second. Perfect.
He's forcing me to wait to talk about Malik Neighbors, which is a very bold move.
Okay.
You got me itching over it.
I got it. Oh, I got it. We're good. Sorry, I was not ready for that one. Let's go to the league, and since Anders is 3-0, I will let him talk about his team first.
Start off on a positive.
Before I discuss what's going wrong with my team, which is very simple. My team sucks.
Yeah.
Anders, quick question. What is your team name in this league?
My team name. So I just realized we never talked about this. So my team name is the Madden San Miguel predecessors.
Okay. See, I always forget. I honestly just forgot what team your name was.
Madden San Miguel being the real name.
And you're playing. It's a Philly thing right now.
Boy, I sure am.
And
just show my roster.
I am showing your roster right now. Let me. Okay, now I'm going to share my screen, and I will show you guys Anders' roster here.
Yeah, don't even go to my matchup because it's 99% to 1%. So you don't even have to bother showing.
I'm sharing your matchup. Let me switch it over. Let me just go to that.
You just go make the switch live. I want to. There I go. Yep.
There you are. There's the Madden San Miguel predecessors.
Yep.
And here is your team right now, Anders.
Yep. So just to kind of focus on the starters, because obviously Cup was fantastic week 1. And then there's my bench. Yeah, Adonai Mitchell was a very big kind of I was really hoping he was going to be a bright spot. Obviously, as a passer, Richardson is not, really, he has kind of brought to life a lot of the worries that were held by.
Oh, Anders.
Yes.
We got breaking news.
Oh. Live breaking news.
Breaking news in the MLB world.
What?
The Tigers are calling up Jackson Jobe.
Oh. Wow. Really making the push at the last second.
They are going hard for this. They are selecting under Jackson Jobe, and he will make the major league roster and play against Tampa in this upcoming series.
We're getting breaking.
We will discuss this more in length tomorrow on Bleav in Twins for sure.
Nice.
However, Anders, you're just automatic reactions to that.
Oh, I appreciate it. I appreciate the aggressive nature, right? Like it's not, they're not like doubling down on philosophy because it was, we're going to trade Jack Flaherty. We're going to, call up, Trey Sweeney just to see what he has and like whatever. And now they've realized that despite that, they're really pushing it around. And so it's like, okay, well, we're not going to double hedge in our philosophy. If we're in the position to go for it, then, let's actually recognize the urgency of the situation. Because, I mean, they're getting production from everyone. So there's no, if he screws up or sucks or like whatever, it's not a huge deal because they're winning games anyway. So if he could contribute on top of that, and no, it's great. I think it's a very cognizant, aggressive, and I think smart move. I think it's very universally positive.
Yeah, no, that's good. I agree. I mean, this is awesome. First of all, Jackson Jobe is a firecracker. Like, he's awesome.
Yeah.
He's going to be so good for them. And as much as I hate the Tigers because they just passed us in the rankings, and it's going to be really unfortunate to talk about this on the podcast tomorrow.
Yeah.
This is a good move for them. And this is a move that I'm excited for because I'm excited to watch Jackson Jobe play.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I'm just extremely hyped for this.
Yeah,
So that is our quick update here. We'll go back to this, Anders, so you can talk more about this team here. But I just saw the news. And I thought we got to break it here.
This is an NFL episode, but this is a all sports podcast. So if we can get breaking news on the show, we always love to see it. So to this point, I think the biggest highlight for me, I think on the whole has been the two rookie receivers in Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors.
You went with a rookie move. I didn't even notice that until now. You went with a rookie move.
I went double rookie. So I am someone I think it's extremely important to have a healthy balance of high ceiling, high volatility, and safety and high floor. And so Jonathan Taylor, I forget if he got one touchdown or two touchdowns in yesterday's matchup, but excuse me. But he's been
two touchdowns.
Two touchdowns. So yeah, so he, I was happy to take him with my first pick because even though I knew he would be touchdown independent, I thought the Colts offense as a whole would be better because of Richardson's development, and it's had some shaky bits to it, but they're moving down the field, and a lot of that is because of Taylor. So he has gotten the touchdowns that he needs, right? Like, being touchdown dependent is sort of a thing that we sort of scoff at. But if they get the touchdowns, then it's fine. So Taylor's been great in that department so far.
Then, Aaron, I guess I have one question with your team here, which is very simple, which is your RB depth and your depth in general isn't great. So what is your plan to help with that depth, to fix that depth? I guess, what is your plan there? Because looking at it here, I mean, if any of your guys in your starting lineup get hurt, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah. So right. So I tried to take a little bit of a sort of methodical and long-term approach from the running back perspective. So Taylor, obviously, I knew I was willing to commit to Jonathan Taylor being the anchor of my running back room for fantasy, and then kind of going back and forth, between like, all right, I'll take Zamir White, who showed flashes last year, to this point has been disappointing. I think, Alexander Madison, who I think has been one of the biggest positive surprises of fantasy, has been taking all the touchdowns from him. You see a couple explosive plays every now and then, like his physical strengths do show themselves on screen, but the points haven't really complemented it. And then, Zach Moss, enigmatic backfield, but I do think thinking that Moss is more talented. I kind of go back and forth between him and Ford, because Ford, I know what I'm getting, and I know I don't really view Devontae Foreman as a legitimate threat. And then Zach Moss, I just think, is the more talented back on a good Cincinnati offense, and that has worked out to this point. And then obviously Jonathan Brooks, was someone who I had spoken very highly of on this podcast before. He was one of my sleepers, as you guys remember from our sleepers episode.
And give me 1 second here. Sorry, my computer to die on me.
Totally fine. And so I had to have him on my roster. And so I figured, okay, if I'm going to, I'm going to take the chance on Zamir White and just kind of hope that certain things work out. But if not, I supplemented my roster with two very stable high floor players in Moss and Ford, and kind of just switching back and forth between them in the flex, just depending on defensive matchup and things like that. Obviously, the run game for the Commanders has been lackluster to this point, so I'm going to go with Moss because I also think that he's going to get some red zone opportunities. I do think he'll get a touchdown tonight. But for the first 4 weeks, that's a good tandem to have until you are able to insert Jonathan Brooks into the lineup, which what we saw, and we're going to get into Andy Dalton later in the show, but if what we saw from him, can kind of catapult that offense and that, the receiving upside that we all, I think, know he has and that we all can see kind of shows itself, then I think the depth, to Zach's point, will start to show because he will just flatly, be available. So the upside of him was a sacrifice that I was willing to make for.
And then at the wide receiver position with Kupp out, I guess, what are your thoughts on, I don't know how long Kupp's going to be out for, but what are your thoughts on, what are your thoughts on receiving core? Obviously, Jameson Williams was disappointing this week, but he's had a couple of touchdowns before this. Just, do you think that you have the receiver depth to go long term with this season?
I think that Williams to me has enough talent to where I'm okay with making him my third option on a weekly basis going forward. Especially looking at some of the defensive the passing defense matchups he has down the stretch. Or for however long we're assuming Kupp is gone, which again, I'm not sure what the exact number is. I think McVay, when it first came out, just said extended period of time. But if Harrison and Neighbors, who I think now, these are not fluky kind of things. It's okay, so these guys are both going to be the clear number ones on their offenses. And then when they are, we all are kind of look how cool these stat lines from these guys are. But this is what we all thought was going to happen. And so I see no reason from a structural standpoint why those things would not continue. I don't think that Malik Neighbors is going to put up, 29 fantasy points every week. I don't think that, obviously Marvin Harrison didn't have a touchdown. No, seriously, he did have a touchdown. I don't think he's, I don't think he's going to catch a touchdown every single game. But, I think structurally the path to getting 18 to 20 fantasy points a game for either of them is there. So I'm willing to that to me gives me the confidence to where I'm willing to just take repeated hedged bets on Williams and his talent and Ben Johnson's play calling until Kupp gets back, however long that is. So I feel fine.
Okay, now going over to my team, because let's move on here. My team, get ready to look at a really bad team. I just want to point out to you guys now. A team that shouldn't be bad in my opinion, but is turning into really bad for me. This is my team. I am 0-2.
Two tight ends.
I do have the double tight end this week. That was purposeful. It just was disappointing. Obviously, my team is really was a safe team that I thought was going to be a safe team to go with. That has turned into kind of a little panic because Brandon Ayuk and James Conner. Well, James Conner's been okay, but like he had a bad week this week. But
Yeah.
Brandon Ayuk has been very disappointing to start the year. Very, very disappointing. My defense here. I will say I never stream defenses, but this week I did. I went to the Bucs defense versus Denver because I'm like, that's gonna be a safe go around. And then of course that did not work out that well for me. Because the Bucs still had 26 points. And yeah, so no, it's just been unfortunate. But like, if you look at my teams done in the past, like how I didn't win last week with Dicker, McBride, Brian Thomas, Justin Jefferson, James Conner, Jahmyr Gibbs, like without that team, and now I did not win last week, is beyond me. I mean, I scored 121 points last week, but the guy I played scored 160. Like, there's nothing I can do when I'm playing at teams that are putting up numbers that we've never seen before. Like, it is unfortunate that I am just getting kind of screwed over here. Because like this is my matchup. I'm gonna try a matchup. This is the team I played against this week. Okay, how am I supposed to beat that team? Anders, a thought? I mean, how am I supposed to beat that team?
Right.
It's just I don't know what to say. It's hilarious at this point. But man, no, it's just disappointing. I mean, my tight ends. I don't double tight end this week. I thought that was a safe play. It was not. There's not really. It was between now we're going Adam Thielen, and let's be honest here, we're going to start Adam Thielen.
Let me ask you this question, Zach. So obviously, I think Bowers looks good. I think this is one of the big themes for fantasy this year has been sort of, the collection of the tight end market has not performed up to standard. Obviously, Kelsey, Andrews, Laporta, Ingram's been hurt, and Njoku has been underwhelming. There's a lot of the two guys that you have, McBride and Bowers, have been two of the better performing tight ends to this point. Do you intend to continue this two tight end set, or is there anyone on your bench? Maybe
no. Well, there is obviously a concern now. That's like, do I put Thielen in now that it seems like he has a competent QB? Do I put Thielen? Into the game? But again, I think Thielen's really touchdown dependent, and so I kind of want to wait a week and just say, does he play well again next week, or does this happen again 2 weeks in a row for Darnold? Does he play 2 weeks in a row? Not Darnold, sorry. Andy Dalton, does he play well enough that it works?
Right.
So that's that. But no, I don't think I'm going to change anything. I think I'm going to keep my team how it is this week, although I will be dropping the Buccaneers defense. And I am telling you right now, if anyone freaking upsets me about it, it's not happening. I'm going to my defenses here. The Vikings defense will be getting picked up. And if anyone picks them up before me, I will be throwing hands at somebody. It's just how it's going to be. But no, the Vikings defense will be getting picked up this week by me. And yeah, so that is how that team will go. And then I'm going to keep the Vikings for the rest of the freaking year because they are insane. And we'll talk about them more later.
Yes.
But that is that. So that's our one league there that me and others are both very involved in. We're very packed in. My team is in a situation where I'm going to keep it going for right now because I think I have the talent to be really good. I just can't get them all to play really well on the same week basis right now, which is a little disappointing. The question then becomes is how long do I wait for Ayuk to turn into Brian to actually play like Brandon Ayuk? And that is a question I will be asking myself. Because Ayuk's been maybe one of the more disappointing pieces in fantasy football this year. But yeah, so that's that. Now we are going to go here, Anders, to a different league that you are not in.
Oh, yes. Very important. About this
earlier. We're going to run to sleeper here because I have a league here that, oh my God, I have to log in again. Are you really going to make me log in again? 1 second. Sorry. I apparently have to log in again.
Uh-oh.
1 second.
Do you
I'm shipping, right?
tell the audience, do you prefer Sleeper over ESPN?
I do a lot, actually. Give me 1 second here. I'm gonna log out here. Give me a second. I'm gonna log out. I'm gonna log back in. Okay, let me stop sharing for a second. I'm gonna be back. I'll be right back. I'm gonna stop sharing. But give me a second here. But yes, I prefer Sleeper a lot more than I prefer anything else. And that's not really that close. Sent to the email. 0256.
I think I hold Sleeper and ESPN kind of essentially equally.
I don't like ESPN.
The only one that I don't like that I actually I think CBS is not very good.
No, CBS isn't good. And Yahoo, I used to be a Yahoo guy, but Yahoo is obviously not really that big anymore.
I've never used Yahoo. I've never used Underdog either.
NFL.com I also think is pretty not great. Okay, we got my thing going, so I'm gonna be showing you guys that now. And here is my matchup right now. I'm gonna go to my team. So this is the auction team that I did while I was on this podcast 2 weeks ago. If you want to go check that out, it was 2 weeks ago. It was episode 1 of this season, or I think it's named like episode 8 or something like that. Mm-hmm. I talk about this draft, and this was a team I was very excited about. The issue was I didn't know how to do an auction draft. And so I drafted a bunch of really good players early for a lot of money. I didn't have a lot of money for other players left over. So very simply, this is the starting lineup that kind of came to me. Although I will say from now on, Rome Odunze is going to be my starter from now on. And he will be replacing Tyler Johnson on my roster. However, there is one thing that you need to know with this team, which is I just completed my first trade of the fantasy football season. And I will show you that now. This is the trade I just completed. I traded my friend Rigel. I traded him Jamar Chase for the stack of DJ Moore and Brian Thomas here. And the reason I did that is because if you look at my team before the week came, my team was very low. I'm starting Jalen Naylor and Tyler Johnson at receiver. I don't like that. I want more receivers I can trust on a weekly basis. And I think I love Naylor. Don't get me wrong, I love Naylor, but I'd rather have him as a bench piece than a starter. So from this point on, I have Brian Thomas and DJ Moore. I also have Rome Odunze, which makes me consider should I I'm not going to talk about what I want to do my next step here because a lot of my friends in this league watch this podcast, and I really don't want them to know what my head strategy is. But
the secrets.
But I will say I traded Jamar Chase for Brian Thomas. I think Brian Thomas is gonna freaking blow up this year, and I think he's gonna be huge. And I got DJ Moore as well, who obviously is an incredible piece to add. Even though I do have Rome Odunze, both of those guys are great players to have. And so I'm very happy about that. Anders, quick looking at this team, do you like the move, the Chase for Thomas and DJ Moore move?
I do. I mean, I think again, like I'm a Marvin Harrison Jr. owner as well, so I Bleav that he can be like a true, like proper wide receiver one, and so if you can attain depth through and I think and also I think that both you and I collectively agree or are invested in Brian Thomas's kind of long-term sort of potential and upside there. So excuse me. So I don't entirely hate it. And you can take more and then.
No, don't say it.
Nope.
Don't say anything about Moore. Just okay. I get to keep Moore on my team and enjoy him with the prospects of this team.
Okay.
Yeah, no. But no, I'm really hyped. I do like that trade for me also. Listen, I love Chase, but I needed depth. I need help depth-wise, and that gives me a really good depth. And stuff like that. So I'm very happy with that move. And I do think Rome Odunze is going to turn into a really good piece. So I'm very happy with that. Obviously, I'm very happy with this move. And man, Saquon Barkley, can we just talk about him for a second, Anders?
We can take more than a second to talk about him if you want.
I mean, what he is doing right now is absolutely incredible. Do you agree?
Yeah. No, it's kind of like, it's the same sort of thing that I was talking about with like Neighbors and like Harrison, where we all the people, there were people going around Saquon's area that I was a bigger fan of in fantasy. I liked Gibbs more. I liked Kyron Williams more. And I actually still do kind of think that Kyron has been better sort of on the whole. Obviously, yesterday's game is baked into that. But I think a lot of the big kind of selling point was, okay, the O-line's better. And, look at what he's done with this O-line with the Giants. Imagine what he's going to have in this kind of scheme. It's like, oh, well, it's like what we thought was going to happen is happening for the reasons that we said it was going to happen. And yet somehow we're surprised. So, no, he's been really impressive. And I think, I was very adamant. Like, I know that Gibbs and Saquon was a really big conversation for a lot of people. And I took the side of Gibbs. So far, I've been wrong on that. So, no, it's been really, really, really impressive. 5 touchdowns in 3 games, obviously. That's
Yeah,
I forget how many of those are receiving.
Yeah, I agree.
Huge.
Anders, is there any other leagues you want to bring up here in terms of like, do you want to go over to our other duo league, or you think we're pretty much good here?
I think we're good. I think giving these guys one league to follow will make our either the size of our egos or the emotional breakdowns to when we get to like.
Yes, I am showing you guys my one good team, and then you are seeing the Anders' good team and my really bad team. So that's how it is. Yeah. Although if you do look in the corner, in the far left corner over there, you can see my team is absolutely destroying D Swizzy 154 to 82 over there. If you see that, that is a very good. I will say that is I have to show this team because this team is kind of nasty. But look at that, Anders. Mahomes, Gibbs, Barkley, Olave, Neighbors. I mean, just the Jets defense. And my bench looks great too. Oh, it's just a beauty, Anders. It's just a beauty.
Shout out Jets defense.
Shout out the Jets defense, right? Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I will stop chatting. I just had to show that because that's like a good team. Anders, we are going to get into some NFL topics now. We're actually going to talk a little about NFL in a way that I'm excited about. So, Anders, we have 3 prompts here. All 3 we talked about, we created. We think it's kind of like a multiple choice prompt kind of thing. Very simply, although I'm going to edit this first one before. Oh, I almost pressed on something. We're good. I'm going to edit this because you misspelled Jaguars. But
did I? I said Jaguars.
Yeah, it's not Jaguars. But we're going to talk about more panic if 0-3. Who has the most to lose in tonight's game? Is it the Bengals or the Jaguars? Anders, I'm going to let you go first here. And I'm just going to let you go first here while I think of my argument.
No, sure. So tonight we have the doubleheader. I think it's really tough. To me, I am going to side with. I think the Jags have more induce a panic if they go 0-3 for a couple of reasons. One, I know that I know that most of the kind of slow start data that exists with the Bengals under Joe Burrow is mostly kind of clumped into the first 2 weeks. It doesn't really go into week 3. And so that's kind of part of it. The other thing too, though, is that if you look at the strength of schedule, like because the Bengals technically finished 4th place last year, they have a 4th place schedule. And so they do get some breaks sort of down the stretch that they can use to kind of right the ship. Because once you get to this point, if they beat, they might beat assuming they beat Washington, then they have Carolina, who, is still right. Like it is the Panthers. And then you obviously get Baltimore, but then we get the Giants, who we think are bad. Cleveland, who looks like a total disaster. Philadelphia, whose defense has been disastrous. And then you get, the Raiders in week 9. And then week 11, you get the Chargers, who, we don't know what the extent of this Justin Herbert injury is. So there's a little more wiggle room here. And, for a team that we've seen start slow before, versus for the Jags, like if you the 0-3 hole, I think is a little that to me, looking at the schedule, is a little harder to sort of climb out of, because now it's a continuation, right? Where this would be, I think, a 10 game. If you dip back into last season, I think this would be a 10 game losing streak. So, and we've only seen, I think it's 6 teams since 1979 make the playoffs after going 0-3. And so so I'm going to say Jacksonville.
I am actually going to go against two-handers. I'm going to say Cincinnati. Okay. And for me, the reason I say it's Cincinnati is because, first off, the 0-3 hole is there, right? The 0-3 hole is there. You lose in a game where it's no longer the week 1 and 2 excuse. You can't use the week 1 and 2 excuse anymore. You lose week 3, now it's a little scary. The other thing for me is like, week 1, it's week 1. You always struggle week 1. Fine. That's the excuse. Week 2, it's you're playing the Chiefs. You played the Chiefs really well. You probably could have beaten the Chiefs, which are the best team in football. And you're really excited about that. Like, you're like, okay, we're good. We're back. We played Chiefs close. It's still our philosophy to play Chiefs close. If you, though, then go and turn the momentum of, okay, we played the Chiefs close, you actually look like we're actually a competent team again, to then lose to the Jaguars, who really aren't that exciting of a team.
Lose to the Commanders.
What?
Lose to the Commanders.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. If you then go and lose to the Commanders, who are not a great team to begin with, then all of a sudden, that hype is gone. Like, every excuse in the book that you could use is gone. And, like, all of a sudden you're questioning now, am I a good team? Am I a team that can win this thing? Losing the Commanders here would be disastrous for the Bengals, in my opinion. I think in just terms of confidence-wise, especially right a week after you just played the Chiefs really closely.
Right.
Because no one was picking you last week versus the Chiefs. Everyone is picking you tonight versus the Commanders.
Right.
And so for that reason, I think it's the Bengals. And I just also 0-3 hole always scares you. And so I think if the Bengals go 0-3, the Jaguars, we weren't really sure if this was a playoff team or not with the Jaguars. We weren't really sure. They were always right on the fence, maybe off. The Bengals, we were sure were playoff teams. Especially with the Jamar Chase extension, Jamar Chase extension possibly coming up next year. You almost wonder that the Bengals don't make the playoffs this year. Does Jamar Chase sign that extension?
Sure. No, you're right.
And I don't know. So I think this 0-3 for the Bengals could be very disastrous, and I panic. No, so I'm going to say Bengals here for that.
No, you bring up the offseason, which I think is a fair point, because there's two kind of sides to it. There's the side that you mentioned, which is like, and I mean, well, you would obviously mention like the implications of it and like the Chase extension, which I do think like that. I think if they do lose tonight, I think a lot of like the A blocks on tomorrow's shows are going to include that in some way. So I think that's a good observation by you. There's also the part of it, which is, okay, so we had this really noisy and obnoxious offseason with the whole T. Higgins thing and the whole Jamar Chase thing and whatever. And it's like, okay, like maybe like that kind of, had us, lose track of focus and screw things up in the offseason in a way that where by the time we get it sort of clicked together and figure it out, we're going to be 3-5 or 4-7, and it's going to be too deep of a hole to pick out from, even if we do get some easier games. That I do think is a part of it. I think the side note to that is like maybe it's like they can almost use that as like, from a narrative perspective, I think it is easier to be like, okay, hey, like we had a lot of calamity and commotion in the offseason, and maybe we can, we're still taking some time to digest it and like whatever. And, that's fine. Versus like for the Jags, like the Jags,
I will say though, and I want to jump in here. Sorry, I want to jump in here with the Jags. To me, it's not panic on the Jaguars. To me, it's panic on Doug Pederson.
Correct.
I think for me personally, if the Jaguars lose tonight and start 0-3, we're all of a sudden talking about, is Doug Pederson going to be fired here within the next 2-3 weeks?
Right.
Like there is a legit potential of that.
Zac Taylor's job, no matter what happens, I think Zac Taylor's job is essentially safe.
I would agree. So, although I will say though, there always has been concern if Taylor's actually a good coach and it's just not the players around him. I feel like there's always been that concern.
Sure.
And so if the Bengals do have a bad season this year and miss the playoffs with a healthy team and with like T. Higgins and Chase now back on this team, there is a concern. However, Doug Pederson is 100% on the verge of getting fired. Like he's on the in my opinion, and this is crazy. I know that I'd say this because I had this as like a Dennis Allen type thing. To me right now, I think Doug Pederson's the hottest seat in football. At this point.
Well, if they lose tonight, then yes.
If they lose tonight, then yes. Although I will say this, and we're going to talk about this later, but I kind of want to bring it up. Despite the win yesterday, I still think Nick Sirianni's job is on the hot seat, and I think it's getting hotter.
Yeah.
Despite him winning, I still think his seat is incredibly hot.
Yeah.
I agree. And like I thought he coached terribly yesterday. Even though they won, I thought he coached terribly.
No, I'll that. I think you're right.
And so I would say Sirianni and Doug Pederson are the two hottest seats in the NFL right now. Was there any other? Maybe Antonio Pierce. I think Antonio Pierce might be there as well at this point. But would you agree, or is there any other coach? Like now that we're kind of on this topic, I do want to discuss it with you. Are there any other coaches you think could be fully on the hot seat right now?
No. I think the two nicknames, and that is also part of another like reason for like picking the Jags, is I do think that Doug Pederson's kind of job is a point of discussion the way that Zac Taylor's really isn't. But I think the two hottest seats, I think are Pederson and Sirianni. I think that Sirianni is right now has the hottest seat in the NFL. I think Pederson is second. I think if they lose tonight, those seats are flipped. Yeah. I think Pederson goes to hottest. I think if so.
And we also know that the Jaguars aren't afraid to fire a coach mid-season.
Correct.
The Jaguars are not afraid to fire coaches mid-season. So that is another reason why I think Doug Pederson's job could be on the hot seat, because, like I said, they aren't really that afraid to. Do you think Antonio Pierce is on the hot seat at all, or do you think his job is pretty safe? I
think his job. I do think he is liked by the players, and that's a little. I think they're going to give him one full year.
Okay.
Do you the interesting one that I still struggle with in terms of how hot his seat actually is because of how good he was last year is Kevin Stefanski. Because he's still like
he's a great coach. He is a fantastic coach.
Problem.
The issue is it's just he doesn't have the QB. Oh my god. No, how did you guys get in here? Oh, sorry, I got dogs. Like opened the door on me and got in.
Is breaking visitor.
We do have a breaking visitor. Hi, dogs. I have 3 of them in here right now.
3? Oh, jeez.
No. Hey, what are you doing? Okay, yeah, get out. No, okay, I'll be in here. Fine. You guys can hang out. If you guys make any noise, I push you out of here. Okay. So yeah, back to that. I don't know. I always like Stefanski, and always love Stefanski as a coach.
Yeah.
The Deshaun Watson situation put him in a really bad situation.
Yeah.
Like this whole Deshaun Watson stuff has put him in a terrible situation to begin with. And I just think he never really got a chance because of the Deshaun Watson situation.
Do you not think that? But he signed off on that.
Yeah.
So, like, he's a part of that.
Yeah.
It's really difficult because it's he just won Coach of the Year, so that does make it that
Listen, he got Joe Flacco during something. I think he can turn the team around. I think this team will be fine. But no, I agree. I think it's Sirianni and it's Pederson. Those are the 2. And despite them winning yesterday, I really do agree that I think Sirianni to me is just his seat is so hot right now.
I don't even after the win yesterday, I don't think that Dable's seat got cooler. I don't think it got
hot. I think Dable's another guy that also could. Yeah, no, Dable 100%
still stayed the same.
Although I think it, but yeah, no, I think it does. Although I will say officially, right now it looks like Canales actually looks good. Like Canales, that game was so good by Canales.
That's a perfect segue.
And we will say, I didn't even mean to do that. I'm going to say I did not mean to do that. But Dave Canales, we're going to talk about the Panthers because the Panthers won a football game, and they won a football game in dominant and incredible fashion.
Which in itself is
Anders' biggest takeaway from that win and / Andy Dalton getting that win.
So for me, the biggest takeaway, there's 2 big, I think, the 2 big takeaways for me. Number 1 is what you said, and I know that you agree with me on this, because Dave Canales rocks. He rocks. He's awesome. I love his character. To me, he's kind of like, from a character standpoint, he's a kind of less weird, not weird in a bad way, but a less weird, more traditional, more digestible version of Mike McDaniel, I think, in a lot of ways. He's awesome. And some of the stuff that, that if you look at like the All-22, some of the stuff that he was drawing up was really, really interesting. And so he's awesome. I think that's kind of the big thing. The other big takeaway is I do, and obviously it's 1 week. It's in like an isolated week, but I think a lot of the people, and I am in this group, of thought that the blame was not all Bryce Young, but it was the overwhelming majority of it was Bryce Young. I think now today looked pretty smart because I did not, I forget what I had my quarterback ranking. I think you had yours as well. I was not a big fan of Bryce Young coming out of college. I didn't really see, I thought that he is like someone where if you take away, like if he's not completing, 68% of his passes, he doesn't have a ton to offer. He's not well sized. He's not well built. He's not overly athletic or twitchy or fast or mobile. He has not to this point demonstrated any kind of ability from a cerebral standpoint to get in and out of reads and in and out of protections. And so he didn't have much to offer. And so I did genuinely think that he was the problem because, you could, even with other guys who were kind of fringe guys in bad situations, you could see strings of games or even just like halves of football that were like, wow, that guy rocks. Wow, that guy looks like an above average starter. I never saw that with Bryce Young. I couldn't even get like a start to finish quarter of football with Bryce Young where it's like, wow, he looks like a top 18 quarterback. So I
agree.
So
for me, I think the biggest takeaway from this is the receivers actually have fantasy value now. And I'm going to take this back to fantasy, which is the fantasy value of the Panthers has completely flipped. If we were to this podcast last week, one second. Give me 1 second here. Sorry. I am sorry. My dogs are being loud, which means I kicked them out of the room. So that is how that worked. So yes. Very simply put, it's the fantasy value. For example, Deontay Johnson before this week, no fantasy value.
Right.
Now this week, fantasy value. Like 28 points from Deontay Johnson, huge. Adam Thielen, no fantasy value whatsoever. I don't think he's got a pass yet this week, right? Or if he had it, was like none. Right. 13 points this week, caught a touchdown. Chuba Hubbard, 27 fantasy points, something like that. Massive. Andy Dalton, he has fantasy value now. So I don't know. Tommy Tremble, that's another guy who has fantasy value, really. So I don't know. I'm excited about this Panthers team now. I think this Panthers team has exciting offensive potential with Dalton at QB. I don't know how long it's going to last with Dalton. I don't know.
I don't expect him. I don't expect him to have this kind of performance, but I don't expect his box sheet to look like this. But from an organizational, like not organizational, like a structural standpoint of the offense and like what it looks like, I think it looks just so much more crisp and fleshed out, and like all of those pieces that they invested in. Like now, Damian Harris and Robert Hunt have like actual something to protect now, which looks really good. So, but I'll ask you, I don't know, because, I don't, preface, like, I know that for fantasy, you would listed Bryce Young as a potential like deep sleeper. But I want to ask you like about like what the future for him looks, because like, there's been some bad quarterback play this year. There's been some really good surprising stuff, right? Like Geno Smith, Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, all that. But like, right, I'm a Jets fan, okay? I watched the entire Jets-Titans game from start to finish, and I legitimately think like Will Levis, who I'll take the L for that too. I thought he was going to be not great. I thought it was going to be fine, and you're going to see some flashes. Now, they haven't been whole flashes. I think on the whole, I do think he's the most undisciplined quarterback, not the worst quarterback in football.
No, I would say he's the worst quarterback in football.
I think he is the most undisciplined quarterback in football.
Wait, who would you put up worse?
But I will say this, like, I saw even in the Bears game, and then again like in the Jets game, I saw him make like 2 to 3 long, tight pocket throws, like in the correct spot to receivers in coverage 2 to 3 times a game throughout the season so far, where I watched it happen. And I think to myself, I don't think I've seen Bryce Young do that.
Yeah.
So, like, what do you like? Is this it for Bryce? Like,
I think it's it for Bryce. I 100% think it's it for Bryce. I don't see Bryce coming back from this. I mean, first off, your confidence is now shot because you were benched when you weren't expecting to be benched.
Right.
Secondly, you're on a team that no longer believes in you at all.
Right.
Where you are now the second best QB on your team. And now, all of a sudden, you start this process where you might be a backup. Some teams might trade for you, and some teams might give you a chance to be a backup QB somewhere. And you might try to just do like a Sam Darnold thing where you find the right situation. But is there a right situation for you? That's the question. Like, I don't look at Bryce Young as like the guy that like I think he could fit in a Shanahan offense. I don't think he could fit in a Shanahan offense. I don't think he could fit in a Kevin O'Connell offense.
Right.
Like, I don't know what offense it would take for him to like be that right guy, but I don't see an offense there for him.
The Chiefs, probably.
Maybe the Chiefs. Maybe like the Cardinals because they're used to like smaller guys that have running speed, but like maybe like Cardinals could work with him as a backup. But
Bryce Young doesn't have any of the speed or twitchiness that
Kyler Murray has. Yeah, no. But the size is like the size there obviously is kind of similar to what Kyler Murray had. I will say, because you're not going to hear shout out to Kyler Murray. I think Kyler Murray's doing this year.
I will make this prediction, Zach, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. We were all kind of confused when the Bryce benching happened, when we were like, we were all kind of taken aback because reporters asked Canals after the Sunday loss against the Chargers, is Bryce still the whatever? And he's like, Bryce is our starting quarterback. He gets benched 24 hours later. Emphasizing throughout the week going against the Raiders that he is still our franchise quarterback, but we just need right now, like, this is about the group. I thought the Canals phrased it really well. This is about the group. And, these guys, you need to be able to look these guys in the face and actually sell them on the way to win this week. So that was talk throughout the week. I think now that they have a win, and a really good win at that with Dalton, I think that you will see that Dalton, that kind of Bryce Young talk and that Bryce Young hedging slowly dissipate over the course of the next few weeks, because not only just out of a comfort thing where they feel like they're a little safe from that, but also they never really explicitly stated what the metric was that they were going to use to establish when Bryce can go back out. So if that's not really clear and it's kind of an abstract thing, then I think that the whole Bryce Young is still part of our future stuff. I think that's going to dial back.
I don't think that's the case. I don't think that. And listen, it's sad, it sucks, but it is true. I don't think that's the case. Moving on though, because we do have one major topic here that I have to get to.
Yes.
And then we have to get to here before we leave. And this is my favorite topic of the whole show. Most exciting 3-0 team. Steelers, Vikings, or Seahawks. And because I'm going to do one quick thing before we do this.
Are you going to change the name?
No, I just have to do one thing here.
Oh, boy.
Technically, we do have to add this, and I do hate it, but Chiefs, Steelers, Vikings, or Seahawks. Because because they are a 3-0 team, Anders. They might not be the pick, but they are one of the 4 3-0 teams.
Yeah,
so
sure.
You got to include them as much as you want. But yes, no, that is that. Okay. This is the easiest question of my life, guys, and you know why. It is the Vikings, and it is 100% the Vikings, because of the fact that they have not only started 3-0, they not only have the clear MVP frontrunner right now in NFL football, they not only have the clear Coach of the Year frontrunner right now in NFL football, they not only have the clear Comeback Player of the Year frontrunner in NFL football, but they also just beat 2 of the top probably 4 or 5 teams in the NFL in back-to-back weeks in what was really dominating fashion. The score in the Niners game doesn't really seem like it, but it was a dominating win. They dominated the Niners pretty handily. And then they dominated the Texans in a way that we have never seen before.
Yep.
CJ Stroud looked like a Bryce Young. in that game, okay? CJ Stroud looked like a player who was taken behind Bryce Young in the NFL draft for the first time in his whole career, okay? And that was mainly because of what should be a head coach next year, but might not be because of all the stuff that's gone on in the offseason, Brian Flores-led defense. And that defense completely stalled CJ Stroud. Before the first play of the game happened, the announcers were talking about how the fact that CJ Stroud had not thrown an interception since week 11 of last year. First play of the game, CJ Stroud throws an interception. And then he throws another one later. How long has it been since we've watched CJ Stroud throw 2 interceptions in a game? Has he ever thrown 2 interceptions in a game? I forget if he's thrown 2 interceptions in a game. I don't think so. Early, it would have had to be early in his first rookie year. But like 2 interceptions in a game for CJ Stroud. And then in the Vikings, 34-7 Anders. We don't see that ever from a team. You don't see that. When you're seeing a team that is not favored, first of all, Vikings, I think we're like 2.5-point underdogs in that game. Beat up on a team that is consistently considered a top 2 team, top 2-3 team in the AFC. 34-7. I mean, you just don't see that. And as a Vikings fan, we don't see that because the Vikings haven't had a blowout win in like 4 years. So I don't it's just what happened in that week and what has happened so far has been awesome. Sam Darnold, just shout out him, man. I mean, you got to give him respect for what he's been doing right now. I think he is right now the MVP frontrunner at this point in the season. Do I think he'll win MVP? As much as I would love to say yes, I don't think so. But I think at this point he's the MVP frontrunner. And I think at this point, I think Kevin O'Connell is probably the coach of the year frontrunner as well. With what he's done on this team. So, Anders, that is my answer. That is my whole fun Vikings rant there. I'll probably do more ranting in this later segment. But, Anders, your thoughts on this question, but also I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Vikings specifically.
Well, so a couple things on the Vikings. So the Vikings are my answer to this question as well. I do want to highlight one of these other teams too, but I think when you look at like the Chiefs, right? Like not in the context of this question, but if you look at the Chiefs, a lot of people have talked about how the Chiefs are in this sort of perfect middle storm with Steve Spagnuolo, where he's such a great and awesome defensive mind and that he was good enough to get a head coaching job. And then he was so disastrously bad as a head coach that the hill to climb to get back there is like essentially impossible. And so you just get to keep him around for as long as you want, essentially. I think that the Vikings might have just found that exact balance with Brian Flores, who is an awesome defensive mind, but because of just how he did as a head coach and, kind of catalyzed with a lot of the offseason stuff, with Tua and his relationship with Miami and all that kind of stuff there, it's going to be really hard for him to get a head coaching job. And so he's probably going to be a long-term sort of defensive coordinator. And so he has the capacity to be and will likely be a long-term part of this Viking staff, which I think is great. It's great for Darnold. It's great for Kevin O'Connell. It's great for JJ McCarthy. It's great for everything. Right.
Yeah. No.
So that's just a quick note on them because you had mentioned Flores. I think because I think all the Sam Darnold stuff has kind of shadowed the Vikings defense and how well it's played.
The question is like, well, it's because I know you don't really hear much. Like the thing is with Flores here, is he doing enough right now to possibly warrant a top tier interview, like an actual interview, and maybe getting to like a final stage of an interview for an NFL team? Is he doing enough right now that you don't think there's a single shot that he gets a head coaching job after this year? You think like all those bridges are burned, or do you think?
I don't think they're burned. I think he'll get an interview. I just think the path is a lot more challenging.
Yeah, that's fair.
Than it was when he was interviewing for all I know is like at this point,
if I'm any team in the league, I'd want his defensive scheme in my scheme. And really the only way to really do that is make him a head coach.
Right. Sure.
And so, like, if I'm any team in this league, I want that defensive scheme because what he's doing right now on defense is incredible. Like,
No,
CJ Stroud and Brock Purdy looked like terrible QBs versus Brian Flores. Like, they looked like rookies. They looked like guys that have never played in this league before.
Yep.
Versus Brian Flores. And they're like two veterans that are, heck, Brock Purdy was near MVP last year. And he freaking got absolutely in shambles by Brian Flores. And CJ Stroud, another guy who was a lot of people are calling him like an MVP favorite coming into this week, he looked in shambles this week as well. I mean, it just was like, I've never seen the Texans offense and defense at the same time look as bad as they did in that game. Have you, like, Andrew, like, legitly, have you seen what we saw from the Texans offensively and defensively? We've never seen before in the D'Amico Ryans era in Houston. So, no. I'll let you go on your little rant here about the Vikings as well.
No. So, yeah, the Flores note, I think that's important. The answer is the Vikings because I'm kind of waiting. I'm kind of just like sitting there and waiting for it to just kind of totally unfold and for the gates to open and it's all like whatever. And then it just hasn't. And they all look the same. Like they all look the same. And it's not really, it gets to a point where it's like, this is not a streak. This is who he is. And I'm just like sitting there and I'm waiting for it to be over. And I'm waiting for
some of those throws Darnold made yesterday versus like the last touchdown that got us like the 31 to Johnny Munt in the smallest gap I've ever. I didn't even know how he got that ball in there, but like that was the arm talent that we talked about when he was first like being drafted. When he was first getting drafted, that arm talent was what we saw in that game. Right. And he had that throw. He had the dot to Naylor in the end zone that somehow found its way into Naylor's arms. I still don't know how that happened. The play where he was running around and just let Justin Jefferson get open because you can't guard Justin Jefferson for 6 seconds. That's where he got. That also includes a shout out to the Vikings O-line who have been playing incredible and giving Darnold enough time to make those plays. But I don't know. That's just like I could talk about the Vikings forever, obviously, and I think they deserve to be talked about a lot here on the show with how they're playing. But and I know you mentioned there's another team you wanted to highlight here, and so I will let you do some highlighting as well here as well. I
also do want to give a shout out to the Seahawks because I think now under, new head coach, new coordinator, everything, new play caller, everything, totally new infrastructure. Like Geno Smith is no longer, to me, maybe you disagree. Geno Smith is no longer just like a good story or like a ascending, like system. Like he's just good. Like he's just good. Like it's not like.
And I will say I'm surprised by that. I thought last year he came back down to earth a little bit. He looked more human last year. And so I'm surprised he's now taking that step back up to where he was 2 years ago. Because after last year, I thought like he was kind of falling back down a little bit. There was definitely a case I thought that could be made to replace him. But I respect what he's done so far early in the year. Because I thought last year he looked not great.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No. I think now, I think this is who he is. And I think, because Darnold because he's starting from like a lower point and the Vikings got a lot of attention with the whole JJ McCarthy injury and all that, now it's all the spotlight's kind of on them. And, especially now with having beaten the Texans, like that's a big time staple win. But the Seahawks, I think, have been, and we'll always find ways to talk about the Steelers. Obviously the Chiefs are who the Chiefs are, but like now the Seahawks, I think, are being sort of under discussed, like, oh, like they're 3-0. It's like, okay. But it's like, no, like this is, I think, who they are. Like, I think that this is now Geno is not just a story anymore. And I think that Ryan Grubb, I think you and I were both, I liked Ryan Grubb. I know you loved him.
I love Ryan Grubb, man. Ryan Grubb, go. Just true go. He's a South Dakotan. Let's just remember that. He's a South Dakotan.
Yep.
Also, I don't know if he's a South Dakotan, but he has South Dakota blood in his veins, and so I love Ryan Grubb.
Sorry, no, you finished. Sorry.
No, sorry. He went to South Dakota State University. He's from Iowa. He went to South Dakota State University. He was a coach in South Dakota State. He was a coach at Sioux Falls. I mean, and then he's worked his way up with Kalen DeBoer, who is a South Dakota guy, all the way up to now having the Seahawks offensive coordinator job. And I love Ryan Grubb. I love him to death. I'm so excited. I hope he continues to ascend. I hope to see him in an NFL head coaching job one day here soon. I love Ryan Grubb.
Yeah, no, the defense has been great as well. And obviously Mike McDonald, like, we're seeing his absence in like other places too, and like the Seahawks staff's absence in places, because the Ravens defense to this point situationally has been bad, like just flatly bad. And the other thing too is that sticking within that game, the Aiden Dirty, I forget if it's Dirty or Deward, how you pronounce his name, but the new defensive coordinator. Oh, there you go. The new defensive coordinator for Seattle. I'm gonna say Dirty. Spent the past few years under Dan Quinn as the Cowboys defensive line coach. And now he, not only is Dan Quinn gone, but he's gone as well. And the Cowboys have I think it's the 30th or 31st ranked run defense in football. So their whole staff has just been built, I think, phenomenally. So they're a real, I think if they get to like 0-4, 0-5, they'll start to get a lot of the same kind of points of discussion that we're getting with the Vikings right now. So I just wanted to make sure that, obviously the Vikings are the main point. I wanted to make sure that they get a little bit of highlight as well.
Okay, sounds good. And with that though, I'm gonna call it a day there. I think we've got what we need to talk about done here today.
Boy, we should.
We got a doubleheader tonight for my football. Excited. Also, we'll have hosted our next episode of Bleav in Twins tomorrow. As a Twins in terms of Twins, we'll also have the Jackson Jobe thing that we broke earlier today. We'll talk about that on that podcast as well. But we are really excited. I do have to get on a plane here in like 5 hours, so I'm gonna have to kind of in like 4 hours. And I have to leave in like 3, so I'm gonna hop off and get packed and get everything ready and stuff. But I just wanted to. I'm happy we're able to do this, Anders. We love a good.
Great to see you.
Sports. The next time me and Anders do a Nerds Ruin Sports episode, we might do. I don't know if I talked to Anders about this yet, but I might do a quick episode later in the week. Like if it's like a 15-minute episode where we just make our picks for this week. Just to make our picks basically on video. But we might do that. But if not, we will see you guys next week after the week is over. And we'll see you next week. But we're happy to get this done with you guys. Sorry we could not do this one last week. We got really busy and couldn't do one last week. But we're happy to do this. And Anders, it's always a pleasure having you on. And with that, I will talk to you all later.
Signing off.
Skull Vikings. These Jets. And we are happy to move on here. And I will see you all next week.
Good to see you guys.